Okay, thank you so much. So welcome to the webinar series for the African Plant Breeders Association. We will be hosting these webinars the first Wednesday of every month. So today is the 7th of June. We could not host it before the 7th today. So we are preparing for our conference, which will be in Morocco in October. So these are sessions that we do to prepare ourselves for the for that conference. So today we have Dr. Mainassara. He's a physiologist and a biotic stress phenotyping specialist. He's based in Summit, Zimbabwe, in Harare. He previously worked for INAR in Montpellier, France. He worked for ICRISAT in India and the University of Abdou in Niger. His research is largely devoted to harnessing the power of remote sensing for next generation field phenotyping that protocols for key abiotic stresses relevant to maize breeding. Dr. Mainassara has more than 50 research papers published in peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Mainassara, thank you so much for accepting to host us this time around. May I invite you to share your insights in phenotyping? Thank you. You are muted, so let me, you can, oh, now it's fine.
Yeah, now it's fine. Many thanks, Dean, for the kind introduction. I was saying I'm happy to see that the Africa Plant Breeders Association is growing, it's transforming, and I'm very pleased to share some insights on phenotyping today. For the connectivity problem, I'm going to switch off my camera. And now let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Obviously, before I start, I would like to say that phenotyping is quite large in terms of topic. So I'm not covering it all. I have selected some aspects that I would like to cover today. As we all know, phenotyping is critical. It plays a key role in breeding. It is quite a long process. As you can see here, you make crosses, you evaluate, you select, and you test, you select, you test, and test again. And phenotyping has and continues to be a bottleneck for most breeding programs, especially in the South. One of the reasons being that phenotyping requires resources, in most cases land, labor, equipment, etc. That's why resources have to be used wisely to be able to extract the maximum out of the investment in phenotyping. That's why it is important to do it right, to do it effectively. Phenotyping can be defined in many ways. I have put just a few here. is the basis for understanding of traits. It can be considered as a toolbox or a set of methodologies and protocols that are used to guide evaluation, and through that evaluation generate information that can be used for selection of desirable traits, for understanding how plants interact with the environment, or how crop function, and in some cases also use that information for crop models calibration. There are quite a number of pillars if we are talking about accuracy or effectiveness in phenotyping. I have listed here some key ones. The first one being able to have your testing environment that is representative enough of your target population of environments. In other words, you want a positive genetic correlation between the phenotyping environment and the target population of environments. Then you have also something around environmental noise that you want to monitor, because you can use that information either to take corrective measures or also to include into your data analysis to improve the quality. Another one is data collection, especially the timing, the growth stage, the method, tools that and scales that are used. In other words, what is the granularity at which data need to be collected? And then you have also the statistical designs using the appropriate or adapted statistical design for your experiment. And all these would contribute to your heritability, and you will be looking for values that are high enough to sustain genetic progress in your TPE. And putting all that together, you'll be able to increase the accuracy of your selection. So today I will focus mainly on this one, how to make sure that my testing environment is representative of the TPEs, and the second one will be on data collection. So once you have your market segment, once it's defined, like here, an example of Southern Africa, Maize, Southern Africa, dry weight mid-altitude transition ecologies. Once it's defined, it is important to dissect it in terms of production constraints. So once you do that dissection, you have so many things, like it could be that there is heat stress, drought, flood, pest, soil fertility, length of the growing season. But then you would need to prioritize them in a way that you can put them in categories. Basically, you'll be looking at two categories: the must-have traits that are key traits for your variety or genotype to perform in the TPEs, and the nice-to-have traits, which are traits that are value-added traits or bonus traits that can also be sometimes important. And once you have defined that, you'll be able to create your trait packages for a specific market segment. And then you will now be able to define your testing environment. And the testing environment can broadly be categorized into specialized testing environment and non-specialized testing environments. These two categories have specificities. The specialized testing environments are environments where conditions are managed. For example, drought stress screening or heat stress, or here, for example, you see fall armyworm testing facility. They also require standardized protocols because you have to follow some guidelines to be able to consistently do the testing. We have actually developed protocols for most of the traits that we are working on, like drought, heat stress, low nitrogen, floods, etc. And those we can share. The specialized testing environment also need trained staff who can consistently and season after season create more or less the same environment. They also often require high investment in terms of things like irrigation, and also because they are highly managed, there is a quite low risk of failure. On the other side, the non-specialized testing environments are, in most cases, for example, for maize rain-fed sites where you have random stresses, they require light protocols, and you'll be witnessing combination of stresses with confounding effects. They require low investment, and because of all of that, the risk of failure is medium to high. For the specialized testing environment, there are some processes that you have to put in place once the site is selected based on your product profile. You have to optimize it through uniformity trial or testing. I will give you some details in the next slide on that. Continuously monitor or tracking the variability, because as you use the site, you can create some unwanted spatial variation, and you would want to know about it, quantify it, and try as best as you can to use it. And then wherever possible, try to increase the precision through investing in, for example, drip irrigation, or getting land levelers and so on to improve the site. So this is an example of what you can do for uniformity trials when you have issues with the site that you have selected and you want to make it a specialized testing environment. The first thing that you need to do is to map the spatial variability. And this can easily be done through quantification of biomass, and there are different methods that you can use. You can use visual estimates. So what you do, you plant a single variety on the whole field, and then you can do biomass assessment through visual estimates. You can also do through image analysis or through spectral reflectance if you collect NDVI information. Then you can generate this heat map that will show you how good your field is. This is another example on our low-end block in Harare, where we don't want to use a season, so we use the off-season to plant wheat. And since it's a single variety, we'll be able to see what are the part of the fields where we have problems of uniformity and so on. And this is actually the result that we got in the following season for the same section of the field. So these uniformity trials can help to improve the characterization of your germplasm. They help to reduce the risk of failure, and they also help to have more accurate management or imposition, and in the long run help to improve the data quality. Once you have mapped your variation, your spatial variation, you have these options. Either you take control measures to fix that problem, or you map your trial in a way that you put your priority trials in areas that are the most homogeneous. And the third option is also that you can use that information in data analysis to improve the quality. Now for the traits that you'll be evaluating, you need to characterize those traits. Here I have put just an example for drought tolerance. If you look at the general equation of grain yield and drought tolerance as a function of the water available to the plant, the transpiration, water use efficiency, and harvest index. What you want is, sorry, I think I skipped one slide. Yes, sorry. So for trait characterization, what you'll be looking at is what variation do I have for that particular trait of interest? What are the proxies or secondary critical process that you do? And I'll give you some example of drought tolerance. For example, in maize, when we say we are screening for drought tolerance, what we are looking for. So for drought tolerance, for example, just an example here, I was saying earlier, you see for drought tolerance is a matter of mostly increasing water uptake and reducing water losses, right? Of course, you would need a good water use efficiency. So if you try to dissect, like in this context, drought tolerance, for water uptake, you would be looking at roots in terms of root volume or root length density, those physical characteristics. But at the same time, also you want to look at the functionality, where we look at aquaporins, how they regulate water uptake or hydraulic conductance. For water losses, you'll be looking at leaf area. We know how it can affect the transpiration, stomatal conductance, and in some cases, proxies like canopy temperature can tell you about the level of water losses that is happening. This is just to give you an example of how you can use proxies. For example, here is some work that we did with ICRISAT, where you use aquaporin inhibitors, and then you measure transpiration rate, and you see how the inhibition of the aquaporins is affecting the transpiration. So in a way, you want to drought. So you can clearly see, for example, these two genotypes, the contrast that you see when you inhibit in terms of canopy temperature, here is 5, right? So in this case, you see the genotype is, the transpiration is more affected by the aquaporin inhibition than here. And this is just the trend over time that you see between the two genotypes. In this case, you have the highest effect of the inhibition here than for this second genotype. So for maize, for drought tolerance, the way we look at that trait, because when you say drought tolerance, it can say different things to different people. working on breeding. So that's why it's very important to be explicit on how your testing is done and what you are looking at, right? So for maize, this is how we do the testing. So we grow the crop under relatively uniform conditions. We usually do it off-season to avoid rainfalls and so on. And then we stop irrigation about 2 weeks before flowering. So that's, if we say drought tolerance in maize, in this case, you have to have that understanding that it means we are exposing the crop from flowering to physiological maturity. We are subjecting that phase to drought. And any genotype that does well, we consider it as drought tolerant genotype. And then, of course, we time to time, we do assess or monitor the moisture, and so that you know the level of stress that you are imposing, so that you are able to repeat it season after season. And then in terms of yield target on the drought trials, we are looking at, if you look at absolute yield level, we are looking at about 3 tons per hectare trial yield average. When we know the only condition that is imposed is drought. And then we reach this kind of yield level, we know the drought imposition level is right. That's a reference. And then, and then we also look at the yield reduction level, either of the two. And here we'll be looking at about 30% of yield under optimum condition. So in this case, you will be having an optimum yield of 9 to 10 tons per hectare. Now, the second aspect of data collection, why important, especially for us, is because we work in a network, and here you can see the current network of on-station testing that we have, about 27 sites distributed under optimum random stress, low nitrogen stress, managed drought, heat stress. And that's why we actually have these protocols, so that we follow the same guidelines across the network. And that way, even when it comes to data analysis, you can do cross-site data analysis. These are some key aspects when it comes to data collection, and sometimes they may look confusing. But here I have tried to put them as simple as possible. When we say we want to improve the accuracy of our data collection, we refer to how representative is my testing environment with regard to the target population of environments. How relevant is the treatment that I'm applying? For example, if in my target population of environment, drought happens only before flowering, I have to make sure that my protocol also takes that into consideration. And then the timing of data collection, obviously, because if you don't collect the data at the right time, whatever method, whatever device you use, you won't be accurate. You might get in precision, but you lose accuracy. On the other side, precision would be more around precision management, how you are imposing your stress, the level of stress, and so on. Around also environmental characterization, how good your testing environment is characterized in terms of soil, in terms of climatic conditions, and so on. And the third one around what methods or tools you use to collect data, whether you use visual scoring or whether you use image analysis or any other method. The data collection tools and method ecosystem is rapidly evolving and offers opportunities for phenotyping advanced sampling distance or resolution if you want. So we have all the way from the satellite imagery with low spatial resolution, but you can cover larger space to manned aircrafts where you can go to a resolution of about 1 centimeter, and drones where the resolution is higher, less than 1 centimeter. And you also have other platforms, motorized platforms that I will give you today. I will focus mainly on things that we have done or other people have done using drones. Yeah, this is to roughly take you through the different methods of data collection that we have been using. Mostly drones. We started looking at plot quality using digital imagery from drones. These are some examples of something that you can get here. We consider the plant population, the differences in growth within the same plot to generate this type of information. Canopy senescence, I will come to that later also. Plant and hair height with simple systems of distance meters that you see here, or stand count or ear photometry. For canopy senescence, the advantage of using remote sensing is that you can do time series. This is an example of one of our low-end block in Harare, at the Harare station, where you see we have this time series of data on senescence. And you can even actually sometimes gain from using that to identify maturity aspects. Like you can see here on this one, this is a quite early genotype, is quite clear from the rest of the genotypes. And in terms of quality improvement, this is what we have seen when we compare the digital imaging from the drone with the visual assessment. The visual assessment done at 3 time points, you can see in terms of heritability is quite good compared to the visual assessment. But most importantly, in terms of genetic correlation with yield, it is giving us the best results compared to the visual assessment. You can also use remote sensing from drones to do crop height. Now it's quite widespread, easy to use. You only need RGB sensor, and you'll be able to use digital elevation or digital surface models to generate information about the height. The advantage from what we have been doing so far is that this gives you the value from the plot, not from individual plants that we usually select when we are doing plant height. And here you can see, you can even generate that information over time for each individual plot. For diseases, there is still a long way to go, especially if you don't have specialized environment where because in nature you'll have combinations of diseases and so on, and it would be difficult to use remote sensing to collect data. But if you have specialized environment where you control for anything else, this is an example of some work that was done in CIMMYT, Mexico, looking at tar spot complex. This is your control block, and this is, you can see the variation in terms of response to the disease. This is an example of ongoing work on trying to identify and quantify damages, leaf damages by fall armyworms. In maize, there's work that is being done to include machine learning to be able to automatically identify and quantify that. In terms of crop lodging, also there are a lot of examples where it is possible to do that. We have not tried it, but it's something that is working and is easy to do because it's just using surface models or elevation models to be able to generate something like this, where you can have for each plot. We have also this digital imaging of ears that you can also do to generate information about ear and kernel attribute from just a photo of the ears that you take in the field. And from the type of data that we got, you can see the correlation, the heritability is quite good. And in some cases where it's difficult to measure yield, actually you can use those to do the selection. Sorry, the slides are moving faster than. And we actually started looking, using this ear photometry for on-farm testing, where we were able to generate yield parameters like average cob size, cob number, total kernel number, average kernel size, and an estimation also of the yield. If you see here, there's a quite good agreement between what we estimate and what we measure. We also use it to detect ear rot, and we have actually seen quite a difference between what our farmers report when they host our trials and what we are able to detect when we use the ear photometry. So despite all the advantages that you can see from using UAVs, there are challenges related to regulations, but there are options, more and more options to overcome that challenge. Some started using this proximal sensing card where you can put all the sensors that you need, or you can use service provision, because there are companies that are all over Africa, for example, and that are ready to offer such kind of service. This is the case of Flying Labs. They operate in most African countries. Actually, they have expanded more than this. But we also have companies like Hyphen that can offer the same service. This is the list of traits that they can generate, and wherever you are, they can generate the data for you that you can access using their platform. This is an example, and you can download all the analytics of those traits that they will be generating, like plant height, plant lodging, senescence, day green, plant count, and so on. The other option also is to try to use satellite imagery, where you have less restrictions. This is something that we did 2 years ago, and this is Muzarabani, and this on your left is a drone image, and here is the SkySat satellite image. And the correlation is between the two platforms it's not bad, is improving. And actually in 2023, we are approaching a resolution of 1/3 of a meter. So it's really improving, and it will offer a lot of opportunities for phenotyping, probably first for on-farm testing, and then slowly moving into on-station phenotyping. This is another example of what we did with the wheat team in Mexico, using the same type of approach. And if you see, the table is quite small, but the heritability that we are getting is quite good. This was actually published just a month or 2 months ago. Okay, this is what I wanted to share. Thank you for listening, and I will be more than happy to answer any question or comment.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mainassara, for sharing. Do we have any questions or comments? I'll give you mine at the end, but I was amazed by the SkySat one, that you can use satellite to collect data at Any comments?
Yeah, yes, sir. Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
I can
this
see
is
the hands.
this is Adaka, but I'm based in Ethiopia, but currently I'm somewhere else. I was very much pleased to see, first of all, a colleague. You know, we have been colleagues for a long time, but I haven't been in contact with the progress that is being made in drought-tolerant maize for Africa. And I would say congratulations, first of all, to Dr. Mainassara. Now, my question is not just about the methodology and everything, but as I said, I've been away. I just want to educate myself. What progress are we really making? I mean, in terms of qualitative improvement. And Dr. Mainassara, how long would testing and testing and testing would continue? Is this something that should be directed at improving the quality? And meanwhile, what happens? How many? Let me put it this way. I have been away since 2017, so I don't know. Between then and now, how many new varieties, hybrids have been released, and how are we measuring their impact on the lives and livelihoods of African farmers?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sadeki. I think this is a quite large question. In terms of variety releases, I don't have the numbers offhand since you left, but if I'm not mistaken, in Southern Africa, I think Toko is online, maybe she can assist me with that. The way the impact is being measured, I would say in two different ways. One is the genetic trends to see how we are doing in improving genetic gain. Of course, that has to be translated into gain in farmers' field. But so we have done a recent study on genetic trends on most of or all of our product profiles. The impact on farmers' field is a quite difficult one, and it usually comes in the form of how much do you get, how much in dollar terms, for $1 invested, how much return do you have? And that is usually done over a long period of time. So I don't think I have a direct answer for that. But in terms of variety releases, I think even Walter is online. They are the people who have the information. Walter, maybe you can help for the variety releases.
Yes, go ahead, Walter, unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Thank you, Maina, for the presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know when Dr. Sadeke left, so I don't know where to start.
Let's say 2017.
2017. Okay, which means almost like 5 years plus now. Maybe we can maybe later share with him the exact varieties are released by each year, which is quite a lot, and also which are drought tolerant. And that one we can get, and also it has been appearing in submit annual reports annually. Then on the impact, I think we also do impact assessment on the seed, on the supply side, where we get all varieties which are being produced, particularly in the 9 countries from Ethiopia all the way to South Africa. We have the data which showed a lot of impact and a lot of movement since 2017. And the impact is huge. For example, maybe I can just pull something here to tell you what happened in 2022 only in terms of impact, which is now public information. It has been already reported. Okay, let me just give me a second so that I give you the exact sort of information. So yeah, from 2017, basically working in 13 countries, we started from a baseline of around 80,000 metric tons, but now we are around 180,000 metric tons of certified seed production of drought, stress-tolerant maize varieties. So that translates to almost like 7 million hectares and also 7 million households, and around this more than 40 million people benefiting in 13 countries. I think that's what I can say in summary.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Walter. Yeah, I think most of this work also generates data that is required for release proposals. So at times it's not properly acknowledged or reflected, but once you go through the documentation, you may be able to see how important this kind of data is, especially separating performance in stress-prone environments. You want, I see you are ready. You can go ahead.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, my question was based. I have a follow-up question. Why I asked that question is because in 2017, I'm sure Dr. Mainassara, you remember we published a paper, maize varieties grown in Africa. How old are they?
Yes.
How many do smallholder farmers grow? And that kind of questioning. In that paper, we showed that having adoption rates is not necessarily a good measure. And we demonstrated that, we illustrated that with an example. For example, this is in 2013 in Ethiopia. Its average is maybe 2010 to 2013, 12, 13, whatever, 3 years data at least. In Zimbabwe, the adoption rate for hybrid maize is about 97% or so. And compare that to Ethiopia, where adoption rate at that time was about, 40%. But then when you look at the yield level, comparing the two countries, in Ethiopia at that time, you would get 3.2 something, 3.4, 3.5 tons per hectare compared to less than 1 ton per hectare in Zimbabwe. So my challenge has always been, look, I mean, okay, for early years of a project, having a look at the adoption rate might be good, but adoption rate does not necessarily mean it is something that is sustainable, because our economists always told us that, okay, farmers can adopt now, but disadopt next year, the year after, and so forth. So I just wanted to bring to the audience's attention that there is, especially now that we have been working on this for such a long time, there needs to be looking at revisiting our measurement of adoption, not adoption, and impact. That's what the message I wanted to pass across.
Thank you very much. I think this is well taken.
Yeah, this is well noted. Thank you so much for that comment, which is very key. I'll go to the comments. Benga says, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Dr. Mainassara. You've made a good presentation. Can we get the recording? So we have a YouTube channel. You'll see all the webinars that we've hosted from the beginning up to now. So this as well, just check in a few days, it will also be posted. I've posted the link to the YouTube channel for African Plant Breeders Association. But what you can do is just go on YouTube, search for African Plant Breeders Association, and you should be able to access this. The next question is Hapson Mshoriwa. Congratulations on a good presentation. What's the cost of those high throughput phenotyping tools? Dr. Mainassara, would you want to comment?
Yes, Hapson. In fact, if you have seen in my presentation, I only focus on some traits that are easy to measure and where the cost of the phenotyping is minimized. So for all of them, you can buy a platform called DGI 3M. It has 5 sensors, and the cost is about between $6,000 to $7,000.
Okay, yeah, I think that can be a challenge to some programs, but as we go, I think these costs will get lower and lower. Then there's Frank.
Go
You
ahead.
wanted to,
I
okay.
mean, if you have such a platform, you would want to use it as a network, right? Or
Yeah.
as a group, then you can minimize the cost.
True, true. Then from Frank, the 3 ton per hectare target for maize drought trial seems too low compared to your desired optimum of 9 to 10. This wasn't clear for me why the 3 ton per hectare target, yet expectation is too high. Otherwise, thank you for the good presentation. Would you want to comment on it?
Yeah, I mean, the target is about what level of stress you want to impose, right? You can you can impose a light stress and maybe get 5 tons or 6 tons per hectare, but is it really reflective? Remember the slide about your testing conditions being representative of your target population of environment. If you are getting in farmers' field because of drought, for example, 2 tons, less than 2 tons, sometimes less than 1 ton, and you do your selection at 5 tons, are you really effective? That's the question. So in these specialized environments, what we are trying to do is to try to mimic. You can't reproduce what farmers are facing in their fields. Yeah, but you try to mimic. That's why we have drought, we have low end, sometimes we have heat, and so on. So that's how these targets are defined. And also, sometimes we would want to go even lower than 3 tons, but you realize if you keep going low, the genetic variation is difficult to pick. So that's how you set those targets, yeah. Not too high where you destroy or you silence the genetic expression, and not too high also that you are irrelevant. I mean, you are doing your testing in an environment that is irrelevant to your TPEs. That's what I can say.
Okay, thank you. Then there is Tinashe Chatara. Please go ahead with your question.
All right. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, very clear. Loud
All
and
right.
clear.
Thank you so much, Doc, for the presentation. I have just some few questions with me here. I wanted to ask, like, in terms of these technologies, based on your experience, which one would you say is more accurate, like the satellite imagery or the use of drones, or they are maybe stress specific? And if so, I also wanted to ask, these technologies, have they been used under different abiotic stresses? And also the last question is, you mentioned earlier on that in terms of diseases, the accuracy has been a bit sketchy. And I wanted to know why is it that under diseases, it's still not as accurate as compared to maybe say drought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will start with the last one. Actually, for diseases, if you are able to have an environment or create an environment where is a single disease, you can generate good data. The problem comes when you have combinations of those, right? And you are not able actually to know if you have MSV with other diseases. Am I selecting for MSV resistance or something else? That's where the issue is. Your second question, yes, this has been used for various stresses. Actually, there are now many players on the market who are ready to provide service provision on generating data for particulars, especially the common stresses that we usually work on. And your first one, what was it?
The first one was based on your experience. Which technology is more efficient? Yeah.
Well, it's quite obvious because it's a matter of resolution, right? So what you want is the highest resolution, and that's what you get from drones, because you can fly as low as a few meters above the crop. That's how you get good data. If the resolution is not good, even
all plant breeders across Africa. Maybe Ajamang, do you want to say a few words on how people can join the association? But I think he's not responding. But we have a Twitter handle, we have a LinkedIn page and a Facebook page. So you can view all the details concerning the association. Just search for African Plant Breeders Association. So as long as you're a plant breeder, there's an annual subscription you can pay. And then Dr. Abate, do we have data comparing the last 20 years, say what was in 2000 compared to 2020 in Africa, the national average yields? Is there someone who is willing to take this one?
I think that's not an easy one to just say.
Yes, it's a difficult one, yeah.
I think Walter can help and provide that information.
Come again on the question.
Do we have data comparing the last 20 years, say what is from 2000 compared to 2020 in Africa, the national average yields, I think for maize? I know Ethiopia was shot up in terms of the yields compared to the other countries, but most of them are between 0.5 to 1.5. But do we have a reliable source?
Yes, I don't know about reliability, but we have data which we can use to compare. At least it can give us some indication. You can also get FAO data, which they also use, although it's not very maybe accurate, you can get that. So if it's data on production, like area maize area, and also yield, yes, data can be found, but to what degree of accuracy could be debatable. You can also get, apart from FAO, you can also get some from Index Mundi, which is an American-based one, which they also use satellite data to calculate the area planted in each country globally. So you can just extract the countries of your choice from, I don't know when, going back as far as you want up to date. So you can get that data and maybe compare the accuracy. But like I'm saying, it's not like based on measured data. Some is based on reported, which is farmer reported, self-reported. Some is based on early warning assessment. Some is based on satellite data. So it might not be very accurate, both area planted and also yield obtained. Yes, the data is there.
Okay, oh, that's good. Thank you so much for that insight. Jill says most people use long-term yield, area, and production data from FAO-Stat. So I think those are some of the sources that we can use. Do we have any question, comment? I don't see any hands or comments coming in the chat. I would want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us from wherever you are for this slot. We will have our next webinar series in July. I think it's on the 5th of July. So this session will be was recorded and will be put live on the YouTube channel. We also have a Twitter handle, so just look for APBA or African Plant Breeders Association. We also have a LinkedIn page. We also have a Facebook page. Please go through these pages. We have a conference that is going on in October in Morocco at the Muhammad University, the 6th Polytechnic College, from the 23rd to the 26th of October. The calls for abstracts and presentations, please respond to those calls and also prepare to join us in Morocco. Otherwise, thank you so much for the time that we have had. Thank you so much to our host, Dr. Mainassara.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.